No, I think you
Oh,
have to
yeah,
have
it's
your
Bob.
speakers
Bob
on.
has to mute. We're muted over here. You just gotta change your audio off.
Can somebody, Mark, is that door open?
Yeah.
We're so close. We're having a technical moment here.
A technical moment.
Yes.
I had it off before.
There you go.
No.
No,
See?
still on.
It's because of his volume?
If I have to get up.
You couldn't even fix your
I know.
own computer.
It was my volume, even though my mic's off.
I
my
know.
No, it's the volume on your
was up.
speakers.
It's so weird.
Microphone, speakers. All right.
We are
Please,
not
Madam
IT
Chairman.
people.
So should I end with the blankets?
I'm not afraid to say it.
Because nobody's here.
Well, nobody's gonna be here at the end either.
No, I know, but they'll be watching.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm filling blankets tonight, don't ask. Okay, welcome to the Monday, October 28th, 2024 Select Board meeting. So tonight we have a small agenda because we basically just put this meeting on the agenda a couple of days ago because we didn't feel as if the message on the override was getting out there. So, a couple stragglers coming in, come on in. Sussmans, welcome. So we invited the school board, the superintendent of schools to come in and give a presentation. So, but before we do that, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I know people say you really can't fix it, but I'm going to try to do my best. I want to bring you all up to date on how we got here tonight. So I want to start with a couple of, we're going to walk down memory lane for a minute. On Tuesday, May 7th, we had the annual Springtown meeting. And we discussed the meeting, right? And at the meeting, the Proposition 2.5 override passed. And that override at the time consisted of 4 pieces. The biggest piece was the school, looking for the 1.1 million, more or less. And then there was a piece for police, a piece for fire, and a piece for DPW. And it passed. Overwhelmingly, actually. But then, 6 days later, on May 13th, at the annual town election, it failed by 8 votes. On Monday, May 20th, a week after the election, we had a select board meeting, and there was a discussion on the bringing back the vote and another, so it would be another town meeting and another vote. And we discussed it. Was it then that was it at that meeting? Was that the meeting at the school?
That was the meeting in the auditorium.
Yeah.
So
So that was a
Okay.
meeting at the school that was very well attended, a lot of comments, a lot of give and take. It was actually a very good town meeting. It was my very first as chair. And we decided, the board decided to not bring it back in that manner. That if it were to be brought back, it could be brought back at the regularly scheduled fall town meeting and the scheduled election, or at the spring town meeting in 2025. We made that very clear. So then, about a month and a half, 2 months later, on Monday, July 29th, the select board meeting at which the school board attended, we did vote to approve the request that this override be brought back at this fall town meeting, which is in, I don't know, 3 weeks. And it's a little bit different. And not because, again, a little bit of misinformation out there. This override is different, not because the select board made any changes to what was the first override with the 3 other town pieces. It was different because the police chief and the fire chief decided themselves not to participate in this bring back. So this one's a little bit less money because it was the school in the exact same amount of money, 1.1 and change, and 57, something like that?
54,000.
54 for DPW. That is what is before us in the next few weeks. So, that is how we got here. And since that time, that was Monday, that was July 29th. On August 12th, the Select Board had another meeting where we discussed the override. On September 30th, we had a meeting where we discussed the override. October 7th, we had a meeting where we discussed the override. October 17th, we had a tri-board meeting where we discussed the override. And on October 21, we had another meeting to discuss and approve the warrant with the override. And October 22nd, there was a forum at the library that the school put on to discuss the override. I'm not going to count how many times, but it is certainly enough times for people to know that there is an override going on in this town. Now, in addition to that, these meetings, because I am the most computer illiterate person you're ever going to meet, we have added buttons to our web page. We have 2 buttons on the web page. One button says, push this button for current meetings, and the other button says, push this button for past meetings. So you can go onto our website, right on the home page, right at the bottom, and push a button. And you can see that all of these meetings that I said actually took place, and that it was discussed at all of these meetings. We can't make this any simpler. We're trying. And tonight,
Madam Chair, sorry, I just want to say the tri-board meeting was not televised. That was an in-person meeting only, so
Oh.
if people are looking, that is not there.
we never,
But
we
that's,
tried to
but
do
the minutes
something.
will be posted soon.
Right, I thought we tried to tape it, it didn't work.
We did try to do it via Zoom.
Sorry,
It
yeah.
taped 3 seconds, and then it shut off, and that was that.
Okay.
So, wasn't purposeful.
Okay, so, but the minutes are somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, good. So scratch that one off my list, but there's 13 others there that are pretty clear. So that's how we got here. I wanted to just let people know that we're trying to bring the information to you. It is up to you to get the information. All right, that's enough. So we have Mr. Mulaney here, who's the superintendent of schools, who is going to make a presentation tonight, which I believe is probably similar to the presentation that was held at the library that was very well attended and was very informational. So the floor is yours.
Okay, and I will attempt to share my screen here.
Something you're sharing. It's not the right screen.
Looks
You
like
want
my
to get
Good
to the
calendar.
right screen. Okay, well, let me just,
Take your time.
See if bank balances come up.
Hide your social security number.
So look inside the superintendent's day.
yeah.
There we go.
Our tech person would be very upset with the number of screens I have open.
Yes,
So,
there it is.
just some information on some of the data involving this override and information on the school's budget. Again, as the chair noted, question 6 is a $1.124 million override. It includes $1.07 million for the schools, which was the same request in May, and $54,000 for DPW worker. And the $1.07 million for the schools would return 15.8 FTEs, 15.8 FTE positions that were cut for FY '25 that we started the school year without. And a big part of this is our decreasing help from the state. We're getting less and less money from the state. The state funds its schools through Chapter 70. It has some very complex formulas involved in the funding. And they use these formulas and calculations to determine each municipality's ability to pay and how much state aid each municipality should receive. And for some time, I know members of the select board and members of the school committee, as well as my predecessor, have talked about how this formula does not work for Millis. And in fact, it doesn't work for 2/3 of the cities and towns in the Commonwealth. Or exactly 211 school districts out of 318 school districts in the Commonwealth received quote-unquote minimal aid in FY '25. And that is the town being responsible for 82.5% of the school's budget. Because of this flawed formulas they use, the calculations define Millis as a wealthy town that is responsible for funding more and more of its education budget through town contributions and less from the state. How do they determine the town's capacity to pay? They used the equalized valuation of property, and that's the full and fair cash value of taxable property in the municipality, calculated by the DOR. They use income from state tax returns, calculated every year by the DOR. And kind of an interesting note here is, yes, the town gets revenue from the property taxes. The town doesn't get any revenue from income tax, yet that is factored into the formula. You put those two elements together, and then the DESE came up with its own formula called combined effort yield. That's, you put the taxable property and income together, they have a formula, and it comes out with a target local contribution, what they believe the town, in our case, what Millis can pay according to the state. And they also have a municipal revenue growth factor that's calculated each year that looks at the growth, the percent change in each community's local revenues that should, and this is the DESE's definition, that should be available for schools. So, with that, we can see that slowly and incrementally, state funding has decreased to the Millis schools, while the town responsibility to fund the schools has increased. And, you know, when you first look at this chart, the lines, it's not a steep slope, it's not, you know, it's not a spike, but you can see that in FY17, state funding covered 27.91% of the school's budget. And in FY24, the state's contribution had decreased to 22.31%. Had the state aid been equal to what it was in FY17, for the FY24 budget, we would have received $1.25 million more from the state than we received as a result of the decrease in funding. For FY24, 1 percentage point is equal to $223,713. So our funding from the state has declined. Meanwhile, as with everything, our costs and our spending have increased. And this is net school spending. This includes the town contribution, Chapter 78, grants we receive, and revolving funds we have to use to fund our schools. Now, if you look at our spending, you know, since 2017, we see over 8 years, the town education, the Millis Public Schools budget has increased 32.14%. If you average that out over 8 years, that's a 4.02% increase. I would say that's reasonable, and that's kind of in line with what we shoot for every year and the town parameters. What you also see is our state aid during that time has only increased 5.64%. So the state aid is increasing by less than 1% a year. So obviously, that means a greater burden has been falling on the town. And so the increase to the town contribution over those 8 years is 42.4%, or 5.3% increase. So again, our budget increases have been reasonable. What the state's contributing to those increases has put us in a bit of a jam. And just another indication that, the Millis Public Schools spending is not wildly out of control. This is the per pupil expenditures for in and out of district students for FY '23. That's the latest data the state has available. And as you can see, as a district, Millis is below the state average. And we also have neighboring communities and Tri-Valley League schools, school districts in this, this chart. And you can see the Millis is in the middle. So the spending has been, pretty consistent and not, I would argue, not overly ostentatious. Meanwhile, the target for state aid, when the state does their formulas and does their calculations, and this is what's happening to our state aid, and you can see that, in 2014, the target aid for Millis was 38% of Millis's budget. When you see 2024, and I would say 2025 as well, we are a minimum aid district, and the state target for us is 17.5%. So again,
Bob, I got one question. Was
Yes.
there a date at which we became a minimum we became wealthy? 'Cause I don't remember
yeah.
that day.
yeah, it's been happening for the last 4 or 5 years that we're a minimum aid district.
Okay.
And another point about the state aid, the state actually would like to give us less than 17.5%. But we, as a minimum aid district, we are also a hold harmless district. And hold harmless means that the state can't give us less Chapter 70 money than the prior year. So we get at least that, the prior year's money, and then because of the Student Opportunity Act, we get a certain amount per pupil that they have to give us. They begrudgingly give us. Generally, it's $30 per student, that's the minimum. This past year, that was in the governor's budget, the $30 per student minimum. When the final budget was approved for the state in the summer, in June of 2024, the Senate and House version actually had $104 per student. So, and that was the approved budget, so we got extra money there that we weren't counting on. But if it were up to the state, we would be getting less than we had the prior year.
Yeah, I remember when I started on the finance committee, before this chart even started, state aid was growing at 2 to 3% every year. So it was growing just like the Prop 2.5. So we'd get 2.5% increase on our property taxes and about 2.5% from the state, and that kept us able to function. And I think as the larger homes were built in Millis and the house values went up, looking at $1 million homes coming in, that's going to change your perceived
Right.
value at the state level. And the income of those people that can afford $1 million homes is the other part of the formula that is looked at that drives down their contribution further. Because you look, it's right when
Right.
the big homes started being built, it went from 29 to 18.
Right, and that's the taxable value of the
Yeah.
property and.
And then the
and
income that the people that can
Right.
afford to buy $1 million home today are
Right.
earning.
And the town, again, the town doesn't doesn't receive revenue from that income.
Right.
But the state perceives, well, with that income, they can cover more of the schools.
Right. Interesting.
And that's what pushes us in the position of having to ask for an override for stuff that had been covered in the past by the state.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's interesting that the better your school, I mean, let's just circulate this, right? The better your schools are, the more people are gonna come. They're gonna drive up the value of the homes because they wanna be in Millis to get to the better education. And so then you get less money. It's almost designed to then bring you back down and then work your way.
Yeah.
it's crazy.
yeah, and I'd also say, you know, a little later, I'll talk a little bit about special education, and Millis has an outstanding special education program. That brings people to the
Absolutely.
district. That increases our special education costs. So in my mind, the bottom line is, we don't have a spending problem here. We have a funding problem. And the funding problem is that the formula the state uses is broken, and, you know, we're suffering for it. Just to talk a little bit about special education, one of the things that's a big cost driver of our budget, particularly in recent years, is the cost of out-of-district tuitions for special education students in private schools. And I say this every time I talk about special education costs. It's very important that we understand that these kids who are in these schools are Millis kids. They're our kids. And they need what they need, and we need to provide what they need. And, you know, the tough thing is we need to provide it. The funding we get back to help us provide it is decreasing. But I don't want to pit special ed parents against general ed parents. These are our kids, and they need what they need. But the costs are really, you know, placing a burden on the district and the town. So you can see the out-of-district tuition costs increasing significantly, you know, just since 2021. You see a pretty steep slope there. Part of the reason why that slope gets so high in '24 and '25 is due to special education tuition increases. And these tuition increases are established by the Operational Services Division. It's not part of DESE, but they establishes the rate and the rates of increase for special ed schools. And you know, from 2016 to 2023, the annual rate of increase, probably somewhere around 2%. Then in 2024, the OSD came out in November of 2023 and
What's the
said,
OSD?
the Operational Services Division.
Okay.
And they came out with a 14% increase in special ed tuitions, and it was framed as those private special education schools. A lot of them were residential. They stayed open during COVID. They had high costs. They had high costs to staff the schools, and so in the OSD's thinking, this was an example of adjusting and right-sizing what the tuitions were. This was done with no debate from any of the school districts. It's just foisted on us, and we have no recourse. We have to pay these increases. And by the way, that 14% increase, there's also a process by which a special education school can ask for an even greater increase in tuition. And that's something that, you know, could happen before 2024. But just as an aside, 14% was the minimum increase. And then in 2025, we're still high above that threshold with a 4.69% increase. Again, if we look at the 2.5% that town budgets are, constrained by, this certainly puts us in some peril. And so what did that do to the average cost per out-of-district placement? Once again, you can see the jumps from, $86,931 in 2023 to $121,705 per kid on average in Millis. So again, you see those spikes, and those costs are mandated. We have to pay them. To take care of things like this, we have to work within our budget. So those spending drivers have hurt what we can do as a public school system. We also have, as you're aware, our revenues from choice have gone down. We had other revenues that, were able to help us keep things afloat for a while, but those revenues, the host community agreements with ComCan, some of the funding we got through grants has declined. So more and more, the brunt is on the town of Millis and the Millis taxpayers. So the cuts that we had to make when the override failed by 8 votes were significant. I'll run through them quickly, and I'll speak more about specific ones. They all hurt. So at Clyde Brown, 2 kindergarten paraprofessionals. So instead of having 1 paraprofessional in a classroom all day in kindergarten, now kindergarten teachers have a paraprofessional for half a day. And just like anecdotally, I was in a kindergarten classroom a few weeks ago, and the teacher had, all the kids on the rug, and she was teaching a lesson, and I noticed there was a student off to the side sitting in a chair, and I kind of thought, what's he doing? And then the kindergarten classrooms all have bathrooms in them, so then the next thing, a kid comes out of the bathroom, the kid on the chair goes in the bathroom. Of course, the kid coming out of the bathroom had a bag of wet clothes, and the teacher's trying to teach, and teacher did a magnificent job of keeping kids directed and taking care of this kid. This is something that if there was an aide in the classroom, it could have been handled, and the lesson would have gone on. Bottom line, anecdotally, those kids in that kindergarten class aren't getting the same thing that the kindergarten kids got last year. Clyde F. Brown, math tutor, reading tutor, I'll talk a little bit more about these in a second. A reading specialist, we had 2 reading specialists who are certified teachers of reading. We only have 1 now, where we had 2. We have no technology teacher at Clyde Brown. We have a beautiful STEAM room, science, technology, engineering, art, and math, the STEAM. We have a beautiful room that is going underutilized, full of equipment that is not being utilized as a result of that cut. Spanish immersion assistant has been cut at Clyde Brown. We've reduced an art teacher at Clyde Brown. 2 English teachers at the middle school. We had double periods of English in grades 6 and 7. We had to cut that, so there's only single teachers there. We cut the double of math teacher in 8th grade. We have middle school TV teacher was reduced, as well as the high school TV teacher, so that's 0.4 in the middle school, 0.6 in the high school, that's 1 person. Middle school math interventionist, which is essentially a tutor. Reduced physical education in the middle school, eliminated the virtual high school teacher in the high school, and that was a teacher that oversaw the online learning of students in the high school, one physical education teacher in the high school, the high school bridge adjustment counselor, an English teacher in the high school, and reduced Spanish teacher in the high school. So that came out to 15.8 full-time equivalent positions. Results, as I mentioned, no technology classes at Clyde Brown, fewer art classes at Clyde Brown K-5, eliminating the double periods of English in grade 6 and 7, and eliminating the double period of math in grade 8. And just for your information, those are the only classes that had doubles in the middle school. So there's not a double math class in 6th grade. There's only one math class. So now there's only one English class, ELA class in 6th grade. TV production classes, the TV program was eliminated, and that's an award-winning program, you know, with kids who have gone on to do amazing work in the field. Larger class sizes in PE in the middle school, larger class sizes in the high school in PE, and the elimination of the outdoor pursuits elective, which for some students was the type of class that got them to school every day. We don't have that anymore. English classes in the high school, larger class sizes, and we had to eliminate the AP Brit Lit program. Our advanced placement program is something we're very proud of, and kids have done very well in it. And you know, as a result of the cuts, we've dismantled some of that program. And larger class sizes in Spanish because of the reduction there. Some of the programs, our Bridge program, provided support to students who are returning from medical and mental health extended absences. It's a huge program for us. It keeps kids coming to school. It gets them back in the door and gets them acclimated again. Like a number of these other positions that were eliminated, is something that served as a way to keep kids in district and not have kids go out of district where those placement costs are so high. Significant cuts to the services at Clyde Brown for students who are below grade level in math and reading literacy. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The double periods in middle school math grade 8, and the elimination of the math interventionist, the math tutor in the middle school. High school electives, no more TV electives, physical education electives cut, English electives cut. Larger class sizes, particularly in the middle school, where we have 8 core classes. Core classes are ELA, social studies, math, science, foreign language, or Spanish. 8 classes have 25-plus students. We didn't have any classes over that size in the middle school last year. The award-winning television production program that I talked about, and STEAM that I talked about. Some of the
Can I ask you one
Yes.
question? A couple of slides back, you had the positions that were, or not the positions, but the, what do we call them?
FTEs.
the FTEs,
The FTEs.
yeah.
Nobody can wrap their head around. Were all of those positions or pieces in place prior to COVID? Because there's a lot of talk about how you staffed up, and that's not just Millis, all the schools in the whole world, staffed up during COVID because there was so much money, and now they don't want to staff down.
Yeah, no, we did staff up, we did hire some staff during COVID. We had learning facilitators, we had permanent building subs, you know, a sub at each school every day in case someone had COVID, they could jump in. We created positions like
Okay.
that. We created extra custodial positions for the cleaning and things like that. But when the COVID money ran out, those positions were eliminated.
They were.
Yes,
So those 15, plus the 7.5 from last year,
right.
were not,
We're not COVID positions.
COVID.
Not
Thank
COVID
you.
positions, no.
I remember when we added the extra math and reading because of our low MCAS scores. I mean, we had a crisis with MCAS however
Right.
many years
That
ago.
may not have to happen anymore.
I know, there you go.
And to that point, you know, there are some indicators that are lag indicators when you look at cuts like these, MCAS being one of them. You know, we won't see
Right.
the impact until a year or two from now. But some of the things we've seen just in the first 2 months of school, special education referrals, by the end of October last year, and this is at Clyde Brown, there were 10 special education referrals. This year, there's 18. So referrals have gone up 80% compared to last year. Part of this is a function of kids not being able to access services, you know, tier 2 services outside of special education to bring them back up to grade level.
I'm sorry, you're using a lot of technical terms
Oh,
that
I'm
you probably
sorry.
do well with, but education referrals, I'd hope you do well with. But education referrals, is that somebody that's going out of our service, out of our school? to receive
It's a
service?
student, a general ed student who's referred for special education services. They could be within the school,
Or
could be
out.
without of the school.
Okay.
So yes, thank you
Yeah.
for reminding me I'm not in a room full of superintendents. It's not a bad thing. So our referrals have gone up 80%. Reading intervention services, this is how many kids we could service with reading, with literacy, young kids learning how to read. When we had reading specialist, an additional reading specialist, and reading tutors. Last year, we were able to provide services. These are non-special education services, but work to bring kids up to grade level. We were able to service 77 students. 77 students by October had been receiving those services. This year, we've only been able to accommodate 40 students. So, you know, almost a 50% decrease in who we can service. And it makes sense, right? We had 2 reading specialists last year, we have 1 this year. In the delivery of these services, kids used to get these services every day for consistency. Now they get them 5 days out of 10, 3 days 1 week, 2 days the next. The service providers, tutors, and so forth, assigned to a grade level. Last year in grades 1 through 3, when, you know, kids are learning to read, you know, probably the most important thing we do for kids is teach them how to read. Last year, we had 1 provider per class in each of the grade levels. So each grade has 4 classrooms, and we were able to service each of those classrooms. Now, that's been cut in half. We can only cover half, we only have half a provider per class. In grade 4, we had 1 person who was able to service all 4 classes. 1 person who was able to service each class. Now we only have 1 person to service all 4 classes. And in grade 5, we had 1 person for every 2 classes last year. Now we have 1 person for all 4 classes.
And just to specify, under the reading intervention services, when you're saying you can only accommodate 40 students, that means that there are many other students that are now not getting these services, may end up on an IEP because they now are not getting the tier 2 interventions
Correct.
in general education to help them be able to read. So that's a snowballing effect that's going to
Absolutely.
make it even worse, because these kids are now going to end up in special education because they can't get assistance.
Right, right. I think that lends itself to that first statistic where we've had 18 kids referred because they're not getting the services. And some of those referrals are for kids whose parents were informed your student didn't qualify for Tier 2 services. And it is a snowballing effect. And it's essentially telling kids, well, you're kind of on your own in the regular class. You got to figure it out yourself, which when you're in first, second, third. You know.
Well, my kid didn't, because my kid was one of the ones that got the reading intervention specialist in second grade when he was diagnosed with dyslexia. And my wife, who used to teach at the Carroll School for Dyslexic, we were a heartbeat away of yanking him and having the school go through the legal process, pick up that out of district, which is not cheap.
Yep.
And he's now finally finishing college. COVID interfered, but and he got scholarships and everything else. It was a huge success. Second, third, and fourth grade, he had reading intervention every day. And he moved on and progressed to the Spanish immersion program and everything else, and graduated and got into a good, very competitive college with a huge scholarship. Couldn't have afforded
Yeah.
it without the scholarship.
Yeah, and,
So-
and I have a similar experience. I'm not a Millis resident, but my son also received those type Tier 2 intervention services. Got it taken care of in the elementary,
Yep.
and then was all fine and dandy the rest of the way, and in fact is now a teacher in another school district that I shall not mention.
So don't mention it. So here's another, thing that people say. Why don't you get some high school students to come on down and help out? Or, is that a thing?
Well,
Well,
because they're
we-
students too, and they need to learn.
I know,
That's
Yeah.
but,
crazy.
We-
part-time.
We have high school students who do some work with the kids, but they can't spend
I know, they're not.
every day,
Right.
providing services to kids.
But you
We
do have some?
do have some that
Great.
do different things, but it's not on a regular basis every single day.
Because
With
high
their
school stu-
schedules,
Right.
we're lucky if we can get them in once a week, if they can do that. And we have senior projects where kids work with the Clyde Brown kids and things like that. But it's not the same. It's
It
not a
can't take the
replacement.
place of
It's
a
not a
FTE.
replacement.
I get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Some other things, the visible impacts of the cuts in the first couple months of schools are math intervention services, again, down. Last year, we were able to service 60 kids by the end of October. We're at 45 at this point, so kind of a 25% reduction there. Monitoring, the numbers are roughly the same, but I would say that some of those kids we're monitoring this year would have been kids that received direct services last year. And in math, to determine who's eligible for those Tier 2 interventions, we used cut scores from diagnostic tests, particularly in grades 1 through 3. Then we can also use MCAS in grades 4 and 5. But last year, we were able to service kids from the 25th percentile down. This year, we can only service kids from the 19th percentile down. Again, it's to those other kids in percentiles 20 through 25, it's kind of like you're in your regular class, you're on your own. And our teachers work very hard with these kids. They're doing the best they can. But these kids could use additional services that we cannot provide this year. In grades 2 and 3, the cut scores for last year were the 35th percentile. This year, we can only service kids in the 17th percentile and below. Grade 4, last year, we were able to provide services to some kids who scored, who were at moderate risk based on MCAS scores. This year, we can only service kids who are at high risk. And many of those kids at moderate risk will become high-risk kids in later iterations of the MCAS. And grade 5, a similar thing. We had high-risk and moderate-risk kids that we were able to provide tiered interventions with. This year, we are only able to accommodate kids who scored high risk who are in the high-risk category on MCAS. Now, all these cuts also come on the heels of the cuts we made in FY '24. For FY '24, we cut $729,357 from our level services budget, moving from '23 to '24. The town stepped in and provided $969,187 in a combination of free cash and stabilization to help us reduce what, came last year. And so with, of those cuts, $729,000 cuts we made, $333,000 were staff reductions. We had to eliminate a grade 5 teaching position. We didn't eliminate the teacher. We eliminated the position that the teacher held, so the teacher had to go to another district. Pre-K teacher, pre-K para, middle school reading interventionist, and so this year we had to cut the math interventionist. We lost 0.5 of a custodial position, 0.5 technological support, 0.5 high school, middle school library aid, reduced high school art by 0.4, which was a 40% cut in the art program at the high school, 0.4 middle school Spanish UA teacher, and a 0.1 high school careers coordinator. So those were cut in FY '24. If you add that 6.4 total in cuts to the 15.8 cuts we made in FY '25, that proved to be 22.2 full FTEs that we cut, and that's a 10.2% reduction in staff since FY '23. So these cuts come on the heels of cuts that were significant last year, and now we're dealing with dramatic cuts. And that brings me to the why now. Why in November are we asking for this override? First and foremost, my position is we need to get these programs and services back as soon as possible. So it's better to have half a year without Tier 2 interventions than a full year without. It's, better to have half a year with only one ELA teacher in 6th grade than to go a whole year without the doubles. And then the November ballot, why November? The ballot will have a greater turnout than May, for sure, as a presidential election. And so, we believe and we hope that the outcome will be a reflection, a more accurate representative of the town's wishes, whereas in May, we lost by 8 votes. So those are kind of the basic data and reasons for why now.
I just have a couple of comments, but I also have the answers to my own comments. I know a lot of people are saying they're looking at the list of cuts and classes and people, and it's a half of an art or a half of a gym or a whatever. And people say, well, who cares? It's unimportant. Well, it's important to the kid that goes to school for the art and the gym. I mean, that's the answer to that. So that's one piece. The other piece is I appreciate that you're coming back, on the heels. But another question is, so say it passes, you hire back, I guess in January, I mean, what are we,
Yeah,
December, January?
We'd try and get staff back to start
Right.
the second half of the year.
And you think
January.
that, you think that there'll be people, quality people available?
Right, for some positions will be more difficult to fill than others. For some positions, it might be a long-term sub.
Right,
But
okay.
we certainly believe that in its, when all
I
is
get
said
that.
and done, we'll
And then-
get these positions
and then
back
Other
with quality
comments?
people.
The town doesn't get, there's people that say, I don't know if I want to vote. I wish that I'd had more time to see what the real effects are. Now, I understand your position is you don't want to see the real effects.
Right,
You-
right.
You want to stanch the flow, right? But you've said that you've already seen some
Correct, yeah,
in, what are we, 2 months into the school year?
right.
I mean, that's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah, and and if you talk to kids in the various schools, they can tell you what the impact has been for them. Obviously, like you mentioned, the kids with a phys ed class or, an art class. And again, for some of the kids, that's why they
I
come
know,
to
you
school.
don't tell me.
That's why we get them.
Just to jump in and comment on that, I have children in Clyde Brown, and there were full-on tears over losing technology. My second grader isn't going to learn technology. My fifth grader is devastated that the program's gone because that was his favorite. Looking at my second graders in Spanish immersion and looking at that class that I visited a number of times last year, I can't imagine that class without an aide. I can't, but they don't have one this year. And when we went to the open house, the teacher in second grade had to explain to us how she's trying to assist the kids that need help in reading, and that, those that are passable readers that are pretty good are just going to have to hang in there because she has to try to balance her time between all the other kids that might need more help. And I don't think that's not what I want to see in Millis, and I don't think that's really what any teacher wants to have to do either. You don't want to have to pit the kids against each other. Well, you're doing kind of okay, so I'm going to deal with you for reading later. So there's definitely impacts, and they're already being seen, and, I shudder to think of what more long-term ones will be.
Right.
So,
You have comments, Craig?
I just think that the criticism I hear is we did nothing. This snuck up on us. For 3 years, we've been talking about this. For 3 years, we took $300,000-ish of stabilization in FY '23. FY '24, we took stabilization and
Free cash.
Free cash, thank you, and used that to balance the budget. Paid back the stabilizations, that money's back. But, and this year we asked for the override. It's not that nothing has been done or we haven't been looking at this. We've been trying to find solutions. And I get it, some people can't afford it. And if you can't afford it, I'll say what I always say, if this truly is a financial hardship, you have to vote no. If this is going to $300, $400, $500 a year, is just beyond your ability to pay it, I understand. But if the vote no to send a message that we should do more, should have done more, or that we should push our state legislature to do more, or to regionalize our school systems, or to build more commercial, that's crap. Our legislatures are both first-year representatives right now, first year. They have no clout. They're doing what they can, but they're not going to get much done. No offense to either of them, they're trying. Regionalization, let's say we pull it off. 5 years from now, we solve the problem. And we have to rebuild the high school, middle school, because no town's going to regionalize and use that for anything. So we're $80 million into that no matter what happens.
And who wants to regionalize with us if we don't want to put the money into our own schools?
Right, exactly. And our school operates on a shoestring compared to others. How many assistant principals do we have?
We have a .5 assistant principal at the elementary school that has over 600 kids.
Right.
And a .6 assistant principal at the middle high school.
And
So,
your assistant superintendent? None. Yeah. So all these other districts around us have all of those positions, and they're going to expect us to contribute to that. I'll investigate regionalization. I'd love to talk about it, but it's worth talking about, but it's not going to be a godsend to solve this problem.
No, but it
5
is-
years from now, we might do something with
No,
it.
but regionalization's been kicked around this town since I was in school. And it's hard. It's
Yeah.
long and it's hard. And we do revisit it every now and then. I think the most funny thing is when Millis wanted to it was always Medway, by the way.
Yeah.
When Millis wanted to regionalize with Medway, Medway said no. And then 10 years later, when Medway got in trouble and they came to Millis knocking on the door, Millis said no. So maybe the times it's been at least that. I would very much be open to exploring it again. But again, it doesn't happen overnight. You need both towns to vote it
Right.
at town meeting,
And let's be
which
clear,
is
yeah,
tough.
the reason we said no to regionalization when Medway came our way is they were heading towards receivership.
were.
They,
into
until
trouble.
the Exelon power plant was built and they received 2
$3 million a
to
year.
3 million a year from that, they were approaching state receivership because they couldn't pay their bills. And I don't want to regionalize with them.
No.
And before, they didn't want to regionalize with us, and I quote from 1980 before I got here, 80s before I got here,
Yeah.
"Who will we play on Thanksgiving?" That
Apparently.
was the reason.
Priorities.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's urban legend, but I've heard that story also.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful it's not true.
Yeah.
That they killed it because who would they play on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, and then as far as the commercial goes, if anything's done with that, it's not gonna there's not much here. We talked about that extensively. I encourage
No.
commercial to come in,
It's not gonna
but it's
save.
not gonna save us. It's not gonna change anything. We're not gonna do a split tax rate,
No.
certainly,
no.
because the idea behind bringing commercial in to split the tax rate will just drive commercial out.
Right.
And I've been working with the assessor to get math on it. We
Right.
could knock a little bit off of everybody's taxes and gouge all of our commercial
But you
establishments.
can't, so
So you can't, so it won't work.
I
Yeah.
talked about this actually, the very first meeting I think that I was
Yeah.
at, as select board member. For commercial, for there to be a split tax rate, you need the commercial to be at least 20% of the total, and Millis is at about 7%. And we don't even have the capacity to get to 20, so.
So putting all these ideas out there as things that will solve this and get rid of this problem. And our state legislature, God bless them, hopefully they pull it off. Both of them are first year. Neither of them represent, well, much. It's small, rural communities. If we had somebody
Well,
represent.
we have a prospective one in the back row, Mr. Kevin Calcutt. Say
Yes, we
hello.
do.
Slink back there. Take his phone number.
Yeah.
If,
And-
if and when he wins, right there, speed dial.
And so I'm hopeful, but I am not confident. And I certainly enjoy working and talking with any elected official, any day of the week. And those that will speak and work with us, they're trying.
They are
But
trying.
it's not gonna, you've seen the numbers, you've seen it go precipitously downward, and that's not gonna change anytime soon.
No.
And that's not negative opinion, that's fact. I mean, I can put on my rose-colored glasses and say, just give it time. And I'm worried about the kids that are in there now, and that's why it comes back to it. That's why we pushed it out there. In 5 years, when we see these scores go down, well, we learned something, but there's 5 years of kids who didn't learn something that they probably needed. So, it's something
Yep.
I think we need to do, and that's why we put it on the ballot.
Right.
And just to specify, I mean, we have all had multiple meetings with our representatives and our senator. I've texted,
Yeah.
called, met in person, and, they understand where we're at, and they would like to make some changes and do what they can, but there's only so much that, has been done.
And they're also hearing from every other town around us, so
Yeah.
we're in good company. You want something to
Yeah,
say?
I just want to say that we have a school committee meeting tomorrow, and Rebecca Roush is going to be there. So if you want to come and
Oh
chat
my
to her,
goodness.
she's coming tomorrow to our meeting. We've also had several several state reps come to our meetings as well, and so the senator's coming to our meeting tomorrow. If anyone wants to come and chat with her or
And
talk
what
to
is
her
the
about-
message they're giving you, Robin?
Well, we haven't spoken to her yet, so we're
But
not sure what
anybody,
she's going to
they've been to
say.
your other meetings.
Yes, they came to our other meetings. They said that they're working on it. They're doing the best that they can. Like you said, like we're a small town, and the people that run our districts also run other small towns. So we're not really the squeaky wheel that gets all the oil. But I think the more towns that we get to rally together that are small towns like us, they're gonna have to listen to us. So that's what my goal is. I wanna try to get them together and to get all the small towns together to have a meeting of all the school committee chairs with the superintendents and the reps to talk about what we can do, and then hopefully the governor will listen to us a little bit.
Let me ask something. Mike, is that something we can help with? Have you seriously reached out to other town managers to try, or are you going directly to school boards? How are you doing
I've
it?
talked to a couple of other school committee chairs.
You getting
and,
anywhere?
I spoke to Holliston specifically, and they're like, we need to wait until after our override, and then we'll circle back and chat with you, because they had a big one in September. And I spoke to Representative DeRosa, and he was very interested in doing this. So we're trying to work on it. We're going to chat with Senator Roush tomorrow about possibly doing something like that. So we're trying to
Right.
rally the troops. Everyone's kind of in their own little,
I know.
oh my God place.
know.
So we're trying to get
I
that.
know, but Mike, is that something you have more, I mean, with, right?
Yeah,
Is
we've
that
had,
something
we have had discussions with them, but I would basically echo what's been said here tonight. You know, our small legislative delegation does, you know, try to advocate for us on Beacon Hill, but it's a mountain that's hard to move. And, you know, I think in speaking with other town administrators in the area, it's a shared frustration. And the formulas are gonna be very difficult to change. Ultimately, in large part, and I don't know if this is openly spoken about a lot, but it's really an urban-rural, urban-suburban issue in that the formulas tend to favor the urban areas, especially the gateway cities and so forth, and obviously they have their sets of issues, but those politicians on Beacon Hill seem to have the louder voices and tend to have a little more control. So it's a difficult battle for our state reps to get movement on
Right,
any
but if-
changes to that formula.
I get that, but if we could get more power in numbers with other towns, I think we should, listen, look what we did with the housing, right? With that letter, and we got
Yeah.
all of our
Yeah,
people to
no,
write.
that was a great success.
Right?
And yeah, it's not to say that it can't be done, and the effort
All right.
should be made.
We're gonna
I
get
just
on
don't
that.
think we should hang our hat on it solely, but I
Well-
do think
Especially
that
not in
it's
the near
worth the effort.
Can't
Well,
hurt.
no,
Yeah.
not in the next month or so, but the first of the year, we should start, really.
And let's make it
Because
not.
this is never gonna go
Well,
away.
and this, I mean, when you were chair, when I was chair, I met with both our state reps. I senator on the phone quite often, you know, and I've got all their numbers on my phone. We chatted probably once a month. It's just nothing happened out of
know.
it. And that's the problem. And that's the reality of, I work in Quincy. When the representative from Quincy picks up the phone, things happen.
You know,
But not so
Well,
much with Millis. They
we're,
can't
we're
find us.
gonna, we're
Where's
gonna
Millis?
see if we can at least get some kind of a coalition,
Yeah.
because it can't hurt.
Mhm.
I don't think that's far out, but that's,
Yeah.
I don't think that's not doable. Mr. Mark?
I agree with you. The specific question that I've asked Representative DeRosa, and I'll ask Senator Roush tomorrow, is it's not getting a coalition of our reps. It's actually getting governor, lieutenant governor, Senate president, Speaker of the House. Those three individuals, Google it. Anybody can Google it.
They have all the power.
They make every decision, those three individuals. If we do not somehow, if our, again, I've had Scott Brown sitting in this room a decade and a half ago,
Yeah.
and Richard, this isn't new. This isn't something that hasn't been, talked about, addressed with every representative that we've had in here for the last 15, 20 years. But those three positions are the ones that make all the decisions. Ideally, we'd get representatives from the local communities with one or some combination of those three that maybe they'll hear. It also matters more if they actually need these communities to actually get reelected.
I know.
Yeah.
Most of them don't. Following back on the other question on bringing back the staffing, one of the thing, there's actually an incentive for the teachers who were let go to actually come back to Millis, because under collective bargaining, they basically have a callback right, so they can come back and they retain the seniority that they had when they left. If they found a job at a new district, their seniority is
Resets.
gone.
Yeah.
So there is an incentive for them to come back. So there's a little bit more of a likelihood that we'll get a higher percentage than just that.
Okey dokey. Are we all set up here at the big board?
I think so. Do we want to take a vote to endorse the override? We've never officially
Yes.
done that. yet.
Sure.
I move that we endorse the override. Is that all I should say?
And yeah.
The override of November
Yeah, Prop
5th.
2.5.
The Proposition 2.5 override on November 5th.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody in the audience have anything to say? Mr. Sussman? No?
I mean, I have questions about almost every slide that I saw, but we don't have that much time.
Well, pick
So that's
one.
okay. I appreciate it,
Okay.
appreciate it.
Um,
I do entirely, I'm sorry, do you mind if I speak?
I do not. Get up here.
Yes, come to the
I
microphone.
was gonna say, do you mind if I speak from back here?
Yeah,
Yes,
you
I
have to
do.
speak
You
from the
do mind.
microphone,
That's
yes.
what I thought. And I just wanted to say, I think that, first of all, congratulations on getting Senator Roush into a meeting. She's only canceled anything I've ever been affiliated with, so good for you, congratulations. I totally endorse your efforts to communicate with, and any town support for communicating with surrounding towns. If there's any way, insofar as I am of any utility in supporting you in doing that, please let me know. I'm happy to support you in that. If you just need bodies, people on phones, I will happily support you, and I think I speak for my whole family when I say that, minus, I guess, Wesley. But I think that's wonderful, and I think that exceeds simply trying to assert political pressure on our representatives and goes into everything we've discussed, regionalization, commercialization, methods to develop economies of scale. I think there's a lot of benefit in working with surrounding towns. And so if I can be of any support there, I will gladly do that. As for questions, again, I naturally, I'm a vote no. I have a number of questions about the data that was presented, but I think it would be a lengthy conversation. I will say I unequivocally support great schools and paying teachers what they deserve. I do hope there's a way to reach common ground. And while in this particular instance I can't support the override, I will definitely do my best to both support great schools in this town in other ways, and if necessary, supporting overrides in the future if that's appropriate, and collaborating to find innovative solutions to achieve your goals in alternative ways. So, and if I can support that, I hope, Superintendent, that you will reach out and let me know how. And that's all. So,
And you are,
Pardon?
and you are,
Say who you are.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My name is John Sussman, 34 Beach Street.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Any other comments? Nothing? Oof. I guess we're
Onto the
done.
warrant.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we did good. We want to,
I have some flyers if you want to see what the handouts that we have. we didn't give
That'd be
to other
great.
people.
Sure,
oh,
thank you.
great, thanks. Thank you. Ooh, cool colors.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joan, for the overview.
Thank you,
I can't distribute them here, but yeah,
yeah.
don't do
Okay,
that.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't.
So we wanted to go
them.
through
Squeeze that way now.
the warrant articles a
Don't
little
do that
bit.
right now.
Make sure everybody knows what's going on, and let's
So-
go.
So, Madam Chair, with your indulgence, I will briefly speak about each article.
Yep.
Please stop me
Be
if
brief.
you'd like me to expound upon anything.
Okay.
Article 1 is prior year bills. We do have a list written right in the warrant, so the voters can see the list of the bills. That would be funded through free cash. That's a standard article we put
Yep.
on every
Yep.
town meeting. Article 2 is the marijuana impact fees. Historically, over the past 4 to 5 years, we've done those in segments, one in the spring, one in the fall, and this is basically the fall portion of those expenses for a total of $137,503.
Can we talk about one thing?
Yes.
This town meeting, it's gonna be like 2 town meetings?
There'll be 2 more town meetings
No,
that
no,
will.
No, no, this will be special.
This
on
is
this.
a,
Oh, I'm sorry.
explain that
Yes,
to people,
yes. So
because
let me-
I
let
have
me
no
back up.
idea what.
Let me back up to the special town meeting warrant.
Yes,
The special town meeting warrant, and the special town meeting will occur first on the evening of November 19th at 7:30.
Yep.
There is basically one article on the special town meeting, and that actually is related to the proposition override ballot question on November 5th. Essentially, Article 1 is funding of items within the school department and the Department of Public Works. And Article 1 is equal to approximately 50% of the levy increase that's outlined in the ballot question.
right, but so even though it's 50%,
It's 50% for this fiscal year.
I get that. So for everybody to understand, the override is 1.1
In change.
and change, but the special town meeting, Article 1, is about 50% of that because,
Yes, because this would look to fund only 50%, the last half of fiscal year '25. Now, should the ballot question pass.
yep, What happens to the
and
other
if-
half?
The other half is
Not
not
assessed.
collected and it's not appropriated. So basically, only half the increase in the levy cap would be affecting the tax bills for FY '25. So essentially, the impact to the tax bills in FY '25 would be the 562,000, not the
Yeah, the first year.
1.1 million.
So when does the rest kick in?
That would be theoretically, if the town meeting in May of 2025 approves appropriations matching the full 1.1, that's when the full amount would impact the tax bills in
Okay.
FY '26.
We don't
Yeah, and
have to assess the full amount, but we can if it passes.
Right. The town meeting may,
Yeah.
May.
appropriate funds up to the cap.
Okay, go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure people understand the vote is not the same vote twice. The first vote at the
Right.
polls is the vote to allow taxes to go up. The second vote is how do we spend that money? So even though taxes would go up 1.1 million and change, we'd only spend 500, I changed the page.
562.
562 this year. Next year would be the full million and change.
And would we do that every year at town meeting?
It'd just be part of the
It would be
budget.
part of the general budget. You wouldn't have to have any special votes going
Okay.
forward. It would be
It will
part
always
of
be
the base
Budget.
budget, and it would be that additional 1.1 plus the general Prop 2.5 increase every year would be part of that base going forward, part of the general budget process at every May town meeting.
So there will not even be a special vote at May. It'll just be rolled into the budget.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It'll just be part of the budget.
And so this is the first article, this is the only article for this,
For the special
special.
town meeting,
the special town meeting.
right. And at the
Then we-
conclusion, this will be adjourned.
Yep.
And then we'll go directly into the fall annual town meeting.
Okay.
At whatever time that is. It'll be
Okay.
after the conclusion of this warrant.
Got it.
Yeah.
Just of note, there's been some confusion because they are both posted for 7:30 PM. That is legal. That was,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if you want to talk more about why we
Obviously-
did that, but.
Yeah.
Well, obviously,
Well, you don't know where
should
it's going.
should the ballot question not pass, then the special town meeting warrant will take about 90 seconds. And then we will proceed over to the fall annual
Got it.
town meeting warrant.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all set on the special?
Should we, do you want to do a motion to endorse that article on the special town meeting
Sure.
warrant? Okay. I move that we endorse Article 1 on the special town meeting warrant.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous endorsement. Okay.
Great,
Number
thank you.
And I would suggest, Aaron, unless we have a disagreement on any of these articles, we just endorse all the articles
At the
on
end.
the warrant at the end.
Until the last one.
Right. But if we disagree
Right.
on one, then we can
Okay.
Then,
take a vote.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good
okay.
idea.
Okay, good.
It's all about expediency.
Yes, no, I'm with you.
Craig wants to
I'm
get home,
jumping-
apparently.
I'm jumping up to Article 3 now.
Wait,
on
I got
the-
a question on Article 2.
Oh, okay.
The 137,000, we spent about that in the first town meeting, in the May town meeting?
A little more than that.
Okay, so right now we have, call it $300,000 of items being funded out of HCA?
Yes,
Yeah.
slightly over that. Yep.
Okay, and next year we get one more installment in May.
And then
then
we'll
it's
probably be
done.
wrapping it up. Well, there might be some funds that straggle into free cash in the
Okay.
fall. And that will be, those funds will be utilized at the November 2025 town meeting would be the last.
Right.
I anticipate the last use of HCA funds.
So in May, we'll probably see approximately 130
We'll see
something.
a reduced amount.
Yeah, probably about this much because this is a twice.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right, just curious.
Okay,
All right, Article 3, we discussed this in a prior meeting. This is for signage.
Yep.
For open space, put forward through the Conservation Commission, and the Community Preservation Commission has supported the use of 15,000 in funds for that purpose.
right, and don't forget this, the community preservation is providing this money.
They're providing the
Right.
15,000 from their fund.
Right,
The next article, Article 4, also related to the Community Preservation Commission. They have agreed to support 50% of a repair and restoration project for the Lansing Millis building, basically an exterior repair. They've agreed to support that with $125,000 in community preservation funds. Then we jump to Article 5, which is our capital article. And I believe the chair of that committee, Mr. Berry, will be into your meeting next Monday to
Yes.
discuss the fall report
Okay.
of the committee. And there are 6 items that they'll be, that they have ranked, that will be in the report. Those items are in your list, which includes an aerial boom lift, the other portion of the Lansing Millis building repair, police tasers, firefighter turnout gear, a Freightliner dump truck with plow and sander, and 2 transportation vans for SD routes for the schools, for a total of $705,147.
And this is not the ranking order, just to be clear.
No, no,
was
no.
gonna
Just for random.
This is not the order of ranking.
I was just gonna ask how I
We
got,
basically do it by department.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil the surprise, Ellen, but
I'm not number 2?
you're not. But
Good to know.
the list is all broken into highest, what do we call it? Medium and low.
High, medium, and low priorities. and-
Lower.
and-
Priority, that was
Lower,
it.
sorry,
Yeah.
lower.
don't
And
even-
I
the-
always say low.
and
I don't
the,
even wanna know where I rank.
The
but-
capital planning committee's report will outline that
Got it.
when Mr. Berry comes before the board.
Okay.
The next article is
Oh,
for,
what, you have a question, comment? Introduce yourself again, please.
Will, John Sussman, 34 Beach Street. Can I just make sure I understand? So with Article 4 and Article 5 on the Lansing, it's 125 that the
Community
cer-
Preservation
fund has
Fund.
agreed to fund half of it. The
Yes.
other half is coming
Out of
Right.
capital.
in
So the-
Article 5 from,
Correct. Well, actually, it's all, Article 5 is all free cash, so it'll be funded through free cash, certified free cash.
and then an additional 125 from the
That's correct. So the total
historic-
project cost for the Lansing Millis building repair is $250,000.
Got it, thank you. That,
Yep.
just wanted to make sure I understood.
Yep.
That's 64 Exchange Street, AKA.
So Article 6, we're continuing on with our goal of improving the roads and sidewalks in the community. There's a article for $500,000 for road, sidewalk, construction, design, repair, and maintenance. Again, to be funded through free cash. Article 7 is to approve the lease of a police cruiser. The total cruiser lease would be $68,816. That's the cost of the vehicle. The funds for this are already in the police budget, so this is not an article for funding, just for lease authorization.
Okay,
Article 8 has to do with the PFAS treatment facility for well number 3. We have received good, excellent bids for this project. However, we did approve 7.1 million at the fall town meeting last November for this project. This does leave us a little tight on contingency. So at the recommendation of our engineers, we've put in a request for additional borrowing authorization of $253,167 with the hopes that we don't need to utilize it, but we need to have that there in case it is required under any contingency. Article 9 was requested by the town treasurer and the finance director. I think they've spoken about that at a prior meeting, to allow some additional flexibility for the investment of town funds. This is allowed under state law, but its local acceptance is required.
Yep.
Article 10 and Article 11 both have to do with the town meeting authorizing the select board to declare 2 pieces of property as surplus and to be able to dispose of the property. They're both small.
Okay, let me talk about these
right.
properties, because this has been since the day I got on this board. So, I've only said this 20 times, but I'll say it 20 more. There are a lot of little teeny-weeny parcels of land spread all over Millis. A lot of them are left over from subdivisions, people that don't pay taxes, the town ends up with them. And there's, I don't know, there's at least 300, I think 300
Yeah,
of them or
there's a
something.
lot.
It's
There's a lot.
Did you put the list back on the website?
Oh, no, I gotta do that.
You need to do
I
that.
think it is.
We had it
I just gotta
on,
put
I
in
don't
more.
know if it came off.
Yeah,
It is on,
it's
but
on there, it's just not in a
working
very
to put it
obvious
in a more
place.
easily findable spot. And also, just to note on that, we've also been working with the assessor's office to update the map.
Yes.
Oh,
Just to
great.
make it clear,
Yep.
and a few parcels have switched, there's been a
Perfect.
few small changes.
So these are little pieces that just look like they're abandoned pieces of property. There might be a piece next to your manicured lawn, and you say to yourself, I wonder who owns that. Well, check out the list on the website, because you can be the proud owner of a little teeny-weeny postage stamp piece of land in Millis that will add so much more value, raise your taxes incredibly, no. You can add to your piece. So, there's a little process you have to go through, the first of which is coming to the town and just requesting.
Yeah.
Yes, so basically, both these parcels, we've had individuals, abutters reach out to us
Yep.
with some interest in these parcels. It is a project we had been working on to try to get all the parcels that the town has determined there's no real future
Well-
use for. But we haven't had time to put it on this one. But these 2 particular parcels we're putting on there because the town's determined that they're small landlocked parcels with no use for the town.
Right, they're not buildable, people.
And
They're not the Cassidy property, they're not the Braun property. You can't just come in and try to buy those. These are little teeny-weeny leftover pieces that may be, that are really
Yeah.
worthless, except for an abutter that wants to add it to their lot.
Right, they're
Right.
usually inaccessible by anybody else.
Yeah, they're
And-
usually landlocked.
Landlocked.
And as town-owned parcels, we're not collecting any property taxes on them. If they were sold to a
Right.
private owner, the town would.
But I just want to ask, what's the first thing somebody has to do? Just comes in with a letter, gets the map and parcel, and says, I'm interested.
Yes, if they
Yes.
come in and show us a piece of town-owned property they're interested in, it'll be reviewed to determine whether or not that's a parcel that the town has any interest in.
Yep.
If not, then, the board could authorize a future town meeting to take a vote on this.
Yep.
And if they do so, then the board has the option and the authority to put it out to bid.
So
Right.
basically, this is just giving the select board the authority.
That's
to put it
correct.
out.
It
Right.
doesn't, it
So
doesn't
the ne-
require it, it just
right.
gives the board the
Right.
option.
So if it does pass at town meeting, then it's just not automatic. We sign a deed and give it to you, right?
Right.
You
That's
got to go
correct.
through the process. So
Right.
you put it out to bid. hopefully, there aren't 10 neighbors. I mean, that would be nice, a bidding war, and we get $1 million for a postage stamp piece of land.
I'm going to bid on all of them.
Just drive the price
Yeah,
up.
exactly.
But that's not going to happen. And so hopefully, for a nominal amount of money, the town deeds the piece to you,
Right.
and you add it, and it gets off our no-income property, and you pay a few shekels for it every year. That's the goal.
And it removes the liability and.
Everything.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, I've been seriously talking about this since I got on the board. Go ahead.
So that was not
your-
my question,
Okay,
but
but
since you're talking
identify
about it,
yourself,
I
please.
do have a follow-up.
Yes, please
I'm
identify.
Heidi Gilmore,
Hi, Heidi.
and I live on 13 Evergreen. I do have a question about this, even though that wasn't the impetus for my coming up. How big is teeny weeny? Like, are we talking the size of the lectern?
No,
or-
but you're talking square feet, not acres.
Yeah.
So maybe it could be the size of this room, or a couple, 2 times the size of this room. They're all,
Too small for a house
Yeah.
lot,
right.
too
Do-
small.
Not buildable.
When we put this plan on, which we've had on,
Yeah, it's
Others-
on there somewhere right now, it's just.
are the sizes on there, or is it just an address?
I think the sizes are
I
on there.
think-
If
yeah.
not, the assessor can tell you.
Yeah.
Right, you can come
Yeah,
up and
just
check.
curious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there aren't
okay.
any near you, Heidi, sorry.
I know. I want the one next to us, Ellen. If that's on the list, we're going to bid on it.
Okay.
All right, so my question is just on Article 9. You guys went over it quickly. I'm sure you know what it's all about, but I don't. So I just wanted to know a little more about that.
Oh, the prudent investment.
Well,
rule.
it really just provides, I can't go into, in-depth detail. That's something I would probably have the finance director or the treasurer do. But it does provide some additional options for them as far as how they can put town accounts into interest-bearing accounts and other investment vehicles that are very safe by most general standards. But right now, the state has very narrow investment options for towns. This provides some flexibility in that. Now, I couldn't go through and tell you exactly what they all are. I would say that, once the finance committee puts out their flyer, they'll have some additional information on that. And I'm sure the treasurer could provide some additional information as well.
Okay, just curious.
It's just limiting
And-
us to very safe investment products, and the list is super short right now.
No.
This makes this list.
But we'll have somebody available at town meeting that will
Oh,
speak
yes,
to that?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, and we can look at MGL Chapter 44 and find that information too,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay,
It should be going right online to the state's website, and it'll describe
And
what
then-
the options are.
And when you learn what it is, you can come back and explain it to us. How's that?
deal. If I understand it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just one other point, this was included in the recommendation sheet that came out from that Department of
Yes.
Revenue, DOR,
Yes.
DOL,
Yep,
DR.
yep. They
Oh, the people
recommended
that
it.
called us
Yeah,
for
the
the
people that called
interviews?
us, yeah.
Yeah,
So this
they-
was one of their 8 recommendations.
Oh, good.
To
Yeah.
do this?
To
Yeah.
Yeah,
Adopt this?
Yes.
yes. That it would benefit the community
And
to
this was
have this.
in there.
Right. I was going to say that next.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Article 12, Article 12 and Article 13 are both articles that we were really required to put in there to
Right.
meet our new water permit through the
Yep.
Department of Environmental Protection. One deals primarily with our water management. The other has to do with stormwater and certain measures to try to protect our streams and waterways. So I think both of those have been spoken to at length
Yep.
prior.
Yeah.
And I think that, if, I know Mr. Weiss is here if you have any questions, but he's
No.
here also for some other
Right.
articles we're coming up with. So the next article is probably will get a little more attention at the town meeting.
Yep.
This article has to do with a multifamily overlay district. The town's been working on this for over 18 months. Mr. Weiss has spent an incredible amount of time working with different committees to bring this to fruition. I believe, by sheer page number. It holds the record as the longest article in the warrant. And some people refer to it as the MBTA zoning bylaw. But this essentially will put us in compliance with the state. And I know the planning board has had a number of hearings on this as well. And I don't know if the board has any questions about this at
I
this point.
don't, but if anybody, does anybody in the audience have any questions?
Can I go for just a minute? Because
Yeah,
there are people
because you
watching.
were on that.
Yeah, I spent
were
18
the
months
liaison.
going once a month to the meeting for hours.
Okay.
So it's called the MBTA zoning, but it has nothing really to do with the MBTA. That's the media. It's the fact that we abut an MBTA station. We're a town that abuts a town that has a commuter rail station, Norfolk. And it's really 3A zoning is what it's called. It requires us as an adjacent community to set aside about 50 acres of land to accommodate 14 houses, 15 houses per acre. Works out to 750 houses total that we have to, potential dwelling units.
Potential,
I'm trying to
yes.
use the right word. It doesn't require that we build anything. We have to produce zoning that allows it to be built by right. So we picked 2 parcels of land that total 55.3 acres, 5.3 over the minimum, so very close, and we have to get roads and other things in there too, so that's why it's over. And the areas that we selected, first off, I think makes sense, even if it wasn't for the MBTA or the 3A zoning, it makes sense to do it. It's GAF, the GAF property, and the Stony Brook property.
If
So-
people don't know where the GAF property is, it's on
It's
the
on
back.
Union.
It's on Union Street, it's on the back side, it's behind
Ann and
the
Hope.
Ann and Hope property. So
Yeah.
if you have your back to my plaza, Roach Brothers, and you're looking out at the Clico smokestack, there's a railroad track behind that. Behind that, which faces Union Street, is the old GAF asphalt plant.
Yeah, and the,
tower is still
there.
The tower.
there's a tower still there.
Same
That
tower.
site is unused by the town. It needs cleanup, it needs work done on it, but it would be a place that would accommodate high-density housing without disrupting any existing neighborhoods. The other one is Stony Brook, and that's already high-density housing, so basically we're overlaying on top of that. People can continue to use this for what it is now, an abandoned factory and apartment dwelling, or they can choose to build under this new
So, right,
bylaw.
so Stony Brook is behind Roach Brothers. If you
Right.
go up Milliston Road, there's a development up there of apartments and condominiums.
And we want to be real clear, there's no, this is not building it. This means a developer has to acquire the JF site, clean it up, and then choose to build on it. It's all governed by our planning board. They have to go in for site plan review. This isn't a 40B where they come in and can do what they want. This is all governed by site plan review, which is what we want to have happen. And the Stony Brook is already apartments. So if they were going to do something there significant, they'd have to remove what's there in some cases and then build new. None of that's a bad thing. That might be good for the Millis housing stock. It'll put this property in play for potential taxes. We purposely did not zone the Ann and Hope site. We left the Ann and Hope site unzoned, and we're gonna extend the Millis other overlay district.
MAEPC, something like that.
MAEPC, yeah, she knows them. We're trying to extend that down there, but that's not part of this vote. The reason we
Right.
didn't go into Ann and Hope is because we want to preserve that for commercial. Maybe similar to what happened over the Nappertandies area and other things, but there are too many restrictions for us to put this into the 3A zoning, because it really governed how much parking you can have, how much storefront space you can have, and all those other items.
But, okay, and just to reiterate, because people are so confused about this, this is not something that the town participates in. We're not labeling this land, so now somebody's going to come in and buy it for $1. This is an arm's length transaction. Somebody would have to come in, deal with the current owner of these properties and negotiate a deal, purchase the properties, and then come before the board and tell us what their plan is to build units. We still have some control. Again, I look at this as sort of an exercise in futility. I think it's the governor checking off a box that says, look what I've done for all of you in creating housing. Well, maybe, but for now, it's just zoning. So we shouldn't get too carried away with it. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, well, I really can't add that much to what you all said. A couple of things. It's 11 parcels altogether, up north of Main Street, or north of the tracks, actually. You have the GAF property, you have the former Herman Shoes property, and there's that one property that is a automobile service plant. And yeah, Stony Brook, the owners of Stony Brook own most of the properties to the south of Main Street. And there are 4 other properties that are right on Main Street that are privately owned by smaller owners. And I don't think any of them are owner occupied at this point. And I should also mention, this is an overlay. So the zoning that exists there now stays in place. It gives whoever owns the property a choice. They can continue to, if they own it, they can develop it as the zoning that it is now, or they can choose to use the what we're calling the multifamily overlay district. When I first presented this to the board, about 2.5 years ago, when it first came out, I saw it as an opportunity. I saw it as an economic development opportunity. It's not the end-all, be-all, but we have done, in the last 25 years, we've had 3 major planning exercises that the town has gone through for economic development, and all 3 have said the same thing. Put more people in your town center, you will help businesses. And that, when I saw this, I said, that is what we've been looking for. So we've gone into a lot of detail. The committee that we have, the advisory committee, has gone into a lot of detail. Mr. Schultz is a member of that committee. And, you know, we started out with, what, 3,000? We started looking at about 3,000 different...
The initial plan was to add 3,000 units
Right.
to the town. I said I'd vote against that in a minute. So
Right.
everybody else will as well. So that plan was revised.
Right, so, and the committee came up with this great plan. It puts any new building would happen, under this, would happen in the town center, where it is truly needed. And we have site control, just like we would in any other zoning. The planning board has the authority of site control, of site plan review, I'm sorry, a site plan review over it.
Okay, thanks,
you.
Bob. Do you have a? Answered? Whew,
All right.
I can't
I was
believe,
afraid you were going to ask us about Table 7, Section...
I can't believe we answered a question.
Yeah.
All right, very good, very good, very good.
Moving on. 15.
Moving
So
on.
Article 15, Madam Chair, is again another zoning article. This one was sent to us by the planning board for referral back to them. Had to do primarily with a dog park, which there is a developer interested in going in to that location with the dog park. And again, I think we've talked about this at length. I don't know if there are any other specific
No,
questions.
that's a parcel of land up past if you're heading toward Medway on 109 and you pass the bowling alley, you pass Hammond Lane, there's gonna be a housing project there on the corner maybe. Right after that,
Former Babfar.
Babfar, right, before Tractor Supply, a little bit on the left, you can see this opening cutting up in the back. That's the piece we're talking about, that wants to be a dog park, which is an indoor, outdoor place to drink beer and let your
Or
dogs.
coffee.
Or coffee. Was it beer? Did they
Beer,
get beer?
coffee,
Yeah,
and
both.
wine.
Beer, coffee, and wine.
And food trucks.
Register your dog, I'm not making this up, because he has to be vetted. You, on the other hand, do not have to be vetted, but apparently your dog does. And you can go there and meet and have fun with other people with dogs.
Yeah, it's not a town-run site. It's
Ellen's a
private
cat
business.
person, so she just doesn't get it, but
I mean, if it works, I think it's terrific.
If you don't have a dog, you can still go.
Yeah.
And have beer, coffee, or wine and look at dogs.
Watch
And get your dog fix. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Article 16 has to do with opening up artisanal and craft maker space. It's another zoning bylaw change. And again, I think we've discussed this at length at a prior meeting.
Yep, that's in the old Ann and Hope.
Yes. at the Hope
Apparently,
Building.
there's a tenant that's going to be an artisan's space,
Studios.
Yes.
studios, which is awesome to bring art to Millis.
Yep.
And then there's also, he wanted a drive-through window. I don't know
I
if
think
he's,
it's unrelated.
you don't think he's gonna
No.
sell the vase through the window? Because that's what I'm,
Drive-up windows
that's
would be
totally what
allowed.
I'm picturing.
I'd like that piece
Sell
of pottery.
porcelain mugs, pottery mugs through the drive-through window.
Yeah. I think it's unrelated.
Yeah, those were brought forth
interesting.
by the planning board, so that's why they're on there.
All right, so the next three articles have to do with putting, actually, Article 19 in your packet, remove that, that doesn't belong there. Article 17, 25,000 to put into the unemployment account. We do try to keep a fairly healthy balance in that, so we think 25,000 would be sufficient. Article 18 is for the OPEB trust fund account. It's $50,000. We do
Try to do
attempt to
that.
put funds into that every year. And then Article 19 is the article by petition, which again, I think was discussed.
No,
And
Article 19.
That's removed.
It's, yeah,
No.
this is
We're
an
gonna bring
older
that back.
version.
Oh, so it'll be
somehow.
out.
So
Yeah,
20
that's
is
like
19.
yeah.
So let's take a vote prior to Article New 19.
Okay, so
Okay.
I move that we endorse Articles 1 through 18.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I move that we
Unanimous.
do not endorse Article 19.
Article 19
The
is
new
the petitioned
19.
article.
Petition.
And do you want to,
You want to give
Well, I
it
can
to
read
without
it.
talking about the merits on it?
Do you want me to
but
read the
I
article,
just
or
had-
you want me to?
Yeah, this
Sure.
article will, please.
So this is exactly as it's submitted, because
So
it
this
did
is
have.
by, explain what
petition,
petition means. Somebody can
It
just get,
has the requisite 10 signatures on it, 10 registered voters, which is what was required under state law. And the town cannot make any changes to it whatsoever. It goes in exactly as written in the petition.
We
So-
had one years ago with spelling errors and grammar errors. We
Has to
couldn't even fix
stay.
that.
Nope.
So,
Okay.
So the following language is Article 19, to see if the town will impose a salary freeze upon all town employees and refrain from entering into or renewing any collective bargaining agreements that provide for cost of living adjustments or annual step increases for a period of 3 years from adoption of this article, or if such salary freeze is barred by a collective bargaining agreement currently in effect, then extending for a period of 3 years from the lapsing of any such collective bargaining agreements currently in effect, submitted by petition.
okay.
and I
What-
guess
what
the
did
only
town
discussion,
yeah.
yeah.
Town council said this is totally
Not
unenforceable on pretty much every level.
Okay.
I mean, the collective bargaining agreements are solely the purview of the select board and the school committee. Really, the only avenue of this which is controlled by town meeting is the funding of those agreements. So the town meeting can decide to fund or not fund the agreement based on budgets that are submitted in the first year of that agreement. But the rest of that is the purview of the chief elected boards of the community.
So this gets voted on.
Yes.
It does.
And what would happen if it got voted?
Nothing.
It
And it passed?
it'd have no legal effect.
Okay,
I mean, it would be recorded in the minutes as passed, but it would have no legal effect.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'd be, there was one years ago that had the spelling errors and the typos and the grammar errors that we couldn't change. it required that we post, this is years ago, that we post the town budget on the website. Even though it had no bearing on us, it wasn't required to do, but it made a lot of sense. So we now post it didn't pass because why pass something that has no legal impact? I mean,
But we did it.
we did it anyway because it was a good idea. So,
I like that.
so anyway, that's that.
I wouldn't see us doing this
I
anyway.
would not see us doing this.
Right.
I think it would exacerbate the departure of staff quickly,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Are we,
And that is the conclusion of the warrant.
and that's.
So Ellen, you have something to talk about before
Yes.
we
Oh, my
adjourn.
goodness. Everybody waited for this, I could tell. So this past weekend, there were all kind of things going on in Millis. It was Touch a Truck. Turns out, Touch a Truck is not the event where people just stay and touch the truck, and the longest person there that touches it gets the truck.
Is that what you thought it was?
Listen to me. I swear, that's what I thought it was.
You just have not been around enough.
Turns out, it's for little kids to go in and play in all the different trucks. And it was,
See what
I
they're
tell you, I wanted to do it, but they wouldn't let me. But everybody comes with their trucks. It really was wonderful.
And didn't they drop a pumpkin from the top of a?
I don't know,
Yes,
did
they dropped a pumpkin, they had a pumpkin drop from the top of the fire engine ladder.
From the ladder
Oh,
truck.
I saw the ladder.
The pumpkin
I didn't know
smash,
when
yeah.
when they did it.
Ellen was under the
Big
impression
stuff.
she was going to be leaving with a
With a
ladder
new truck.
Yeah,
Who
the
knew?
ladder truck to drive around in.
Anyway, I am not making this up. I really did think that.
That's
But
funny.
anywho, the other event that was going on was put on by the Lions Club. First time, you said?
Yeah, I think so.
At the middle high school. And it was like a crafts fair. And it was really good. So this is what I walked away with. The Lions Club has come out with a new Millis. Can they see this? Can I be shilling for the Lions Club?
Sure.
Do I need to hold the corner?
I think
If you
so.
have the peddler permit, if you have applied for a peddler permit, we will allow it.
So, it's the new blanket, you only get half, come halfway, keep coming, can you see it? It's a
Oh,
Millis
yeah.
blanket with all the historical sites. It's $55, I think it would make a wonderful.
Christmas
Take a
present,
picture? A
holiday
wonderful
present.
Christmas present, hold it up.
I'm holding it up.
So look at all the.
Well, there's the Millis.
It has,
the
oh,
Veterans
it
Memorial
has,
School,
it has 64 Exchange
Oak Grove
Street.
Farm and all the, look.
Yeah.
Yes,
Railroad station. the
that we're
Lansing
going to be
Millis.
fixing up.
Now, hold on. So I had to go into the archives, my father's old office in my office building, and find the original one that came out like 50 years ago.
Oh, I have the newer one.
This one right here.
I like the green on
That's the
that.
new police department.
This
Ooh,
is
that's
the
pretty too.
original.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I
Oh,
like
look,
that
it
with the
stains and
seal.
all, so you know I didn't prepare. But this is,
Oh, there's the old fire station, the police station.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's
Ellen-
kind of
Before it was the
cool.
Veterans Memorial Building, yeah.
right?
Wow,
So it's really
that's cool.
very cool. I don't think you can get any more of these, but you can get this
Check my
one
mother-in-law stuff.
at the Lions
Yeah,
Club.
okay.
Anywho,
Are you selling them up there?
what?
Are you selling them back there?
Yeah.
No, but for
Can you go-
$60, I'll get you one.
Yeah, Is it, can you get them on the Lions website?
I have no
or reach
idea.
out?
I'm
Do you know,
assuming.
Erin?
I know Debbie Hayes
They had a
does
bunch
lot
of them.
that.
Yeah.
I know you can get them.
Yeah.
You can reach out to me if you want, and I will find the right person for you
Yeah.
if you want one.
They're really nice.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
It's a nice gift.
So I think does that wrap it up?
Okay, I move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Recording stopped.